Sometimes when I count them, I forget how many I've counted. 4, and then you can start over again. 5. So we have our 5 cups of flour, and for salt, we need 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, I do have a special spoon I use because when you buy sets of cutlery, sometimes a teaspoon in one set is smaller than a teaspoon in another set.
Right.
So they've got standardized measurements which come in the form of the teaspoons that you buy. I don't know really if it makes that much difference. And I always can never tell where it's put because depending on who puts it away, it ends up in a different spot. This one actually has a measurement here. That's 2.5 teaspoons. That's 2 teaspoons right there. So I need 2 teaspoons of salt. So I try to get that as close to exact as possible. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of play in some recipes anyway, but you want to try to keep it as close as possible. So that's 2 teaspoons of salt. Baking powder, I need 1 teaspoon. So this one actually goes down to 1 teaspoon.
I gotta get a spoon like that.
Yeah, there's different kinds, but basically it's the one. The problem with this is that it's 1 teaspoon. So if I use something wet and I need to pick up something dry again, I have to clean the spoon. So sometimes if I can get all the dry stuff in there first, I do that. So there we go. That's 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I need 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now, a lot of the time when you're cooking with brown sugar, it'll tell you to use like a third of a cup or a quarter of a cup packed brown sugar. That's when you put the cup in and you kind of smush it in. So when you dump it, it kind of keeps the shape of the cup. So in this case here, it doesn't say to pack it down. Now, this one, it says 3 tablespoons. This goes up to a tablespoon. Okay, so I need 3 of these. Sugar. Now, I've never made this particular pastry before because unlike you usually do the one that's on the box, right?
Right.
So 3 tablespoons. Try to make it level because otherwise it's not a tablespoon, right? Just want to see how it keeps the shape? Pretty funny.
Looks like poop.
Looks a little lighter colored than poop.
I don't know about that.
Depends what you ate, right?
Yeah.
3. Oh, you can get the shape and roll over. Here's the brown sugar.
That's what Mia's poop looks like when...
One thing you want to do with sugar, brown sugar, is you get as much air out of the bag as possible. That's why I like these. I have some smaller ones over here. I don't know why they're over here, because I never put them over here. Maddie, you look puzzled.
Oh, just looking at something on here.
Now, while my pastries usually do taste pretty good, I don't find they look as good as like some people. They just seem to make pastry that looks pretty, right? So what we're going to do now is we have to mix this together. Now that's why I want to make sure that the brown sugar gets broken up and doesn't have any lumps. You want to mix it through completely, otherwise you'll have little bits of brown sugar that's kind of in a lump in your pastry, and you don't want to have a lump like that in your pastry.
When I did the pastry, I never put brown sugar in mine.
Yeah, like this is the only recipe I've ever seen with it in there, so we'll see how it goes. I have made pastry with butter though, and it has a different consistency to it. I also have one in the old Bentley cookbook, which is like a ladies' church group cookbook. And it says it's a bride's pastry, never fail. The only thing is it's very, very sticky because they ask for a lot of water. But it gets to be really hard to work with. Like you can't roll it out like you'd want to, right? So I think what you want to do is just try to distribute like the salt and everything in there, and where you can't see it, you just kind of have to guess how much you'd have to mix it up. So I'm going to call that good. And Then cut the lard into pieces with a knife. With pastry cutter, which I don't have, cut in lard until the whole mixture is crumbly and feels moist. Now, for me, like I don't usually have a pastry blender, but what I do is what my mom used to do, and you get two knives and you cut them across, right?
Yeah, I've done that before.
So we need 1 pound of lard. Ooh, that's a lot of lard.
And how much is a pound?
Well, it's probably the whole block. Let me see here. 1 pound, 454 grams. 454 grams. This whole thing.
Wow.
With 5 cups. Right? So it seems like, I think this makes actually a little bit more pastry.
Yeah, and you can probably use the extra for whatever you want, pretty much.
Oh yeah, well, like my grandmother used to make little jam rolls, or cinnamon, or anything on the pastry, or you can make little
that looks like actual butter.
it does, and that's why I like this one for cookies, because it gives it that golden color rather than a white. So again, what it says here is to chop this up, right? Cut into pieces with a knife. So now this is still a little bit soft. I don't know if this will get hard like other pastries, so I'm just going to go ahead, other lards, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it as it is, and just cut it in. I'm just going to cut it, like cut bits and let it fall into the bowl, like that. And that'll just make the process in the bowl a little bit shorter, hopefully. There's almost as many recipes for pastry as there is types of pies. I made one once. It was completely made with a pound of butter. And it was very easy to work with, though. It wasn't like lard where you got to be careful how long you handle it, that sort of thing. It just seemed like a very rich pastry as well. And then you can get ones that are more like a biscuit.
Okay.
Like a shortbread almost, and then you get, of course, the graham cracker crumb ones and ones. So yeah, I don't mind if there's a little bit on here because it's really not going to make it.
All right.
So what I usually do is I try to mix this just a little bit, like not too fast, just kind of try to pull the flour up from underneath and cut it in, because you don't want your shortening to be blended completely. You want to have lumps. It's got to look like
kind of like the apple crisp topping.
Exactly, like the crumble.
Apple crumble.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think I got a piece of brown sugar that escaped. So yeah, that's what
Not
it
for
is.
much longer.
Yeah. So you just kind of keep pulling up from the bottom. Now pastry, I think, is one of those things that doesn't come natural to me. I'm more like into doing breads and stuff, and a lot of it is because my mom didn't really do a good pastry, and you got to know how it's supposed to feel. Like a lot of cooking is about the texture and the smells and stuff like that. That's why, like when we cook, we also taste it a lot.
Oh yeah.
Because if the seasoning isn't right, it's just not going to be. It's just not going to taste quite the way it's supposed to. That's why people would say things like, "You never trust a skinny chef," right? Because they never taste their own food. So pull up the flour from the bottom. That's not getting mixed.
I have a habit of doing that sometimes where when I make apple crumble, I sometimes tend to do that myself.
What, taste it or?
Or no, pull the flour and the other stuff up
Oh yeah.
over the margarine.
Because if you don't, it only mixes what's on the top, right? And then you end up with a lot of flour underneath that when you add the water, it kind of just makes it like a paste. I made croissants once, and they're a bit interesting to make. It's a dough that you make with yeast, and you make like a rectangular piece of dough.
All right.
And you put a block of butter on it that you flattened out to like a rectangular shape. and you fold your dough over, and then you roll it, and then you fold it, and roll it again. Then you put it in the fridge for a while. You take it out, and you do the same thing. You roll it, fold it, roll it, fold it, put it back in the fridge.
All right.
You do that a couple of times. Then you take it out, you roll it out, and you cut it into the shapes you want it to be. And look how nice that's starting to look.
Oh, yeah.
And again, see when you pull the flour up from the bottom, you see it's not mixed as much.
Right.
But it's a rather long recipe, but it's not that it's hard, it's just the number of steps you have to do. And the only thing I found is that I thought that they were smaller than what I had expected them to be. I thought they were going to be bigger croissants, but because I thought that, like they tell you what size to make them, but I thought that they would rise a little more, and they.
I need a place to. Here should do it. Here should do the trick.
I can also clean the space here for you, right?
It's okay.
I'll move this so you can bring it over when you're ready.
And I take it this is the light cream cheese?
I don't know what's it say on the package.
Because this is, yep, it's light.
Is that alright?
Yeah, it's fine. As long as it's cream cheese. So you really only need to have one block, which is plenty.
That's good because it's on the
And that's all you really need. Where are all the spoons?
check in the sink. Is there? Yeah, the sink there on the left. The left side.
Alright. So really, you need one block of cream cheese. No more, no less, unless you're making for like...
Unless you're doubling it or something.
Yeah, if you're doubling. I find the Philadelphia brand cream cheese is better than the Compliments brand because it's not as not quite as soft.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why that is, but maybe it's meant to be.
Oh, I'm sure they have their own little secret recipe type of thing, right?
Yeah. So now you just beat it up a little bit.
This is actually the one
Now this one is actually going to require an egg too because that's what the recipe calls for. So I am going to need an egg also.
I think this is starting to look really good. I've been pulling it up from underneath. It's good. Sometimes the legs harder to do that with.
Oh, it's looking good.
Yeah, see, it seems to be fairly consistent.
Yeah, just like an apple crumble topping.
What apple crumble is supposed to look like. Sometimes mine doesn't turn out like this. It turns out more of a paste.
Cream cheese filling. Need an egg. And that's all it takes is one egg.
Break egg in a measuring cup, beat well with a fork, add vinegar and cold water to measure 1 cup. With a liquid, a cup like this,
Okay.
right? So when you look at it and you're looking at the numbers and you have to bend down if it's on a counter so you can see, is that right on the line?
Right.
See, it wouldn't work with dry mixture unless you did this, and even then you don't know if it's flat because it tends to be rippling. But that's why I use the other cup so you can just scrape off whatever's on the top.
Right.
I thought I had a 1 cup measuring cup.
Now what I normally do is anytime when I add an egg, I just beat it with a spoon. Sometimes I'll use like a blender
Oh yeah.
towards the end. just so that you don't see like little lumps of cream cheese on it.
Where did you put the egg from? Oh, there. This is something else I saw on TV. They say take your egg, tap it on the counter, and you don't get egg inside your bowl that you're using. I don't know if it really works. But
Dun 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 dun.
I like to wipe my hands when I do this. So, to beat flour with a fork.
Just like scrambling an egg.
Usually, when I say beat well, I want to see those bubbles. I want to see almost a little frothy.
Yeah, kind of like with crepes.
And now I have to add vinegar. And it says 2 tablespoons of vinegar. So set that to 1 tablespoon. And let's see here. 1 tablespoon. 2 tablespoons. And then it says to add cold water to make it a cup. Now I'm going to get cold water from the fridge. But I have to be careful because I don't want to go over a cup. So now right here I can actually put it down, right? So it's nice, it's fairly level. And I want to get level with that, and then I press. And because it does make a little bit of bubbles, a little bit more. I gotta be careful not to include the bubbles as part of the 1 cup, right?
Right.
So when I finish mixing this together, now it says here to pour slowly over the flour mixture, mixing with a fork. So I can use the same fork I have there. I don't like to use a lot of dishes because, well, that means more to clean up, right?
Yeah.
So I take this and pour it over the mixture, and hopefully this all turns out good. Mixing it with a fork. And you can see how the dough's kind of starting to come together.
It's looking good.
Yeah, it is.
I honestly didn't think, I know about a week ago when I made the pie pastry, I didn't even think you need to add egg and vinegar to it.
Well, there's different recipes. There's certainly some that don't have vinegar or egg in it, and I've never heard of putting brown sugar in it. This is my first time making one with brown sugar, so we'll see how this works out. And I try to mix it so that some of the stuff that doesn't have as much moisture there get some as well. So you really do have to dig from the bottom a little bit. So now that I've got this in here, and just to distribute with hands, work it all until it will hold together, and then divide into 4 equal parts. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to work the dough with my hands.
Make sure you have your jewelry off too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because there's nothing worse than trying to get dough out of.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Nothing worse than trying to get dough out of your jewelry. And so this makes a really nice dough, as you can see. It just feels good on the hands.
Hey, Mia. Oh, she's going crazy.
See that?
Yep, I see it.
So then I want to take it and divide it into 4 equal parts. As soon as I make sure that I've got what's left in the bowl kind of in with this dough too. Now some recipes will tell you not to handle your dough very much. This one doesn't seem to be as concerned with it. And I don't know if you remember Rita, when Rita used to handle her dough, I thought she handled it quite a bit, and hers always turned out pretty good. Okay, so right now I'm just going to do this with my hands. Gives me 2. I try to make them handy about the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have this one, which I'll pick up some more of what's in the bottom of the bowl. Just by kind of pushing it in
All right.
and then turning it. And hopefully this will be easy to work with. It does feel like a really nice dough.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to try this particular recipe yourself.
If you want to, you can send me the recipe.
And then we're dividing it again, because it said to divide into 4 equal parts. This one. Sometimes I think that with my recipes, maybe I don't mix enough of the lard in with it,
Mm-hmm.
so then it becomes too crumbly. And we'll mix this as 2 separate pieces as well. And what I'm going to do is put it in the fridge for a few minutes and let it cool down.
Right.
It doesn't say to do that. Oh, yes, it does. It says each part is sufficient for a 2-crust pie. Wrap in plastic and store in a refrigerator for 1 to 2 weeks. Interesting. Well, that's pretty good. So I'll just try to make sure that all of the pieces are the same, and I'll put them in the fridge. So that's it for this.
Cool. Awesome. This is what the cream cheese looks like after the egg has been put in. It's a little smoother. The only thing that's left is sugar and vanilla, and then we're well on our way. This looks delicious.
There you go.
Alrighty then. Alright.
Oh yeah. What's up?
This should do.
My measuring thing is got teaspoons on it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't use this.
Nah. I want to do this my own way. Now this usually calls for 1/4 of a teaspoon, but I tend to like vanilla a lot. So I'd say we'll give it a whole teaspoon. Why not?
I'm going to get the roast put in the oven.
Oh yeah. Look at this. Oh, smell this. This is like, I might not even need a hand mixer for this one.
That's good.
This is actually like the best brand cream cheese.
You could be their spokesperson.
But yeah, I recommend using Philadelphia cream cheese over any other brand. I mean, you can use whatever brand you want, whatever's cheaper, but this is like the best kind.
So is it flavor or consistency that you like in it? Okay.
Huh?
Is it the flavor or the consistency that you like?
It's both. I mean, this looks like whipped cream already. I could eat it right now. But I'm not going to because there's egg in it already. Oh my God, you should see this right now. It looks so smooth and yum yum.
Yeah. So when you put that in the pie pastry, do you put it going up the sides a bit?
Now, what I would do is I would put the pie pastry on here first before you put this in.
Right.
And then once this is in, once the apples and that are peeled and sliced and put in the, this is 1/3 of a cup. I need 1/4 of a cup. Oh, right there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, but when you put in the cream cheese, you put it on top of the pastry,
Yes.
and do you have it kind of smoothed up the sides a bit, or just
You
on the
can
bottom?
you can just fill it into the, like on top of the pastry. It doesn't need to go up the sides per se, and unless you want to do it that way. So I put the sugar, and all you need is a 1/4 cup of sugar. And you mix this up really good.
You don't want any lumps or anything.
No. I mean, with white sugar, there's hardly any lumps. Unless if you left it in an open spot for too long, and the air can sometimes do that. I know with brown sugar, it's the case of that. Yeah, I like this brand cream cheese the best. And I think the light cream cheese is actually better because it's smoother, I find.
Yeah, I don't know what they put in it to make it, or what they take out of it to make it light, but it does seem like the consistency is a little lighter as well. So we'll clean up a few things here.
So there we go. We got cream cheese mixture. You get this extra bits from here.
Look at that recipe.
Ooh.
Sometimes these recipes are really good to hang on to because they're not always in the cookbook that you have. And sometimes I find that cookbooks will have a whole bunch of recipes that you never make. So what I like to do is do up a book of all the ones I've made that I really liked or found successful.
I'd like to just do an ebook with all the recipes in it, and just, it beats cutting down trees.
Yeah, that's true.
So there we have it, folks. We got cream cheese mixture.
I'll use this one to put the peels in.
All right.
So did you want to cut and I'll do the peeling? How's
Yeah,
that sound?
I can do that. That's not a problem.
I'll just try not to peel any of my skin off my hand or anything.
Oh, please don't do that.
Hey,
Jeez.
if anyone's going to do it, it'll be me. The dog wants to come back in.
Maybe the dog can help with the pie.
The nice thing about this, I find, is you do tend to keep more of the apple. Like when you use a knife, you tend to cut more of the apple away with the peeling.
Oh yeah, I've done that before, 150 times.
Yeah. Actually, I find it easier to go this way. I don't know why I was trying it the other way.
And what kind of apples do you recommend for making a pie such as this?
I think it's actually personal. Some people like more of a tart one. Your dad likes more like the Red Delicious. I like something with a bit of a tart flavor to it, especially if you're going to be using it with a lot of sugar, like for an apple crisp or a pie, because they're very sweet. So sometimes it's nice to have that contrast in flavor.
There we go. Here are the apples. Here's some cinnamon. Oopsie. Oh well. I put a little more. Why not? I love
As long
cinnamon.
as it doesn't burn.
It won't burn, I promise. Say, Mums.
I like the cinnamon candies, but your dad doesn't.
Yeah. Who cares about what Dad thinks?
You didn't say that out loud.
He's not even here.
What he don't know won't hurt him.
Yeah. Just like before.
Somebody called granulated sugar.
Oh my God, don't even get me started with that. Holy crackins. I might as well dump it all in there. I don't care. So there. That's what you add to the apples.
Okay.
Before and after you put the apples in, of course. I mean, you can put it in before you put the apples in. You can put it in after.
As long as it's mixed throughout, right?
Exactly.
Fine enough, and that's all you have to do is cut around.
Yeah, and you can cut them any size you want. Thin, thick, it doesn't matter. I mean, as long as they're cut and as long as they taste good, that's all that counts.
So you need to mix those?
Yeah, you can, give me a minute to think. My brain's not functioning.
I like my my fruit cut in different thicknesses, because then you get some that are still a little bit crunchy. Like, it's not, this shouldn't be anything like the bought stuff. Homemade should have some body to it, right? Not be too blended or...
Yeah, this is not puree. This is the real deal, and
You want to chew it, not stick it through a
yeah,
straw
like
or something.
well, not necessarily through a straw per se. I mean, you can sip it through a straw if you want to,
Not the...
but you don't want to like drink it or anything like that.
That's what sipping it through a straw would be. Drinking it, right? We don't want to do that.
Oh yeah, this is looking really good already.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I like homemade bread so much more than the bought bread, is that homemade bread has flavor, and the texture is a little more inviting.
Yum yum. 2 more apples to go. I'll give this a bit of a rest until the rest of the apples are in. But my God, look at this. Cinnamon, sugar, a full bag of apples, and you got yourself cinnamon apples with a hint of sugar. Well, not a hint, because I dropped the rest of the bag in there. But this is good. This is really good. You can either cook it in the pot halfway, get the juices flowing, and then bake it the rest of the way. And
It really depends on how cooked you want your apples. Some people don't like their apples cooked too much, because they like a little bit of crunch, and some of them are a little bit more shape to it. Because when you cook it a lot, you end up with softer ingredients. So I kind of like having a little bit of
crunch.
something that, it's like potato salad. I like to be able to see the pieces and chew into them. And I just think that the presentation looks nice too, because you can see chunks of apple. And then you know that all your ingredients are fresh, because a lot of the stuff that you buy ready-made, it's kind of mushy. It's been overcooked because it gets cooked while it's in the can, and then you cook it yourself. So it's been cooked twice.
All right.
And it's really soft and smushy. That's my word for the day, smushy.
Smooshy. Smooshy pie.
It's cooled a little bit more. And hopefully that, I don't know if it's supposed to maybe make it shrink less, because you know how pie crust tends to shrink.
Yeah. Pretty much anything shrinks when you put it in on the stove or in the oven.
Or for some things, in the wash,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, that's why I like to wash my stuff by hand.
And from the inside out. And I want to turn it. Turn it. And when it starts to get tacky, you really want to make sure you put a light dusting on, because if you put too much flour in, it's almost like you would have mixed too much in when you first started. So
And they'd fall apart.
exactly, and it makes it really tough to work with.
Believe me, I've learned that the hard way.
Now this does really seem like a nice pastry, and like I said, a lot of the time I like the companies coming cookbooks, because most of it is stuff that you normally have in your house anyway. Now they didn't specify brands, they just said lard, right?
All right.
Some recipes will actually say specifically to not use lard, they'll say shortening. Now the difference between shortening and lard is that lard is from animal fat, right?
Ooh.
And shortening is from vegetables, like you know how you can get vegetable oil, that sort of thing.
All right.
And if you've
Oven's
got enough
preheated.
flour on your board that this doesn't stick, it'll make it a lot easier when you need to pick it up. Now see, I don't think this is going to make a top and bottom for a pie.
Oh no.
Maybe for a very small pie pan, but not for the one that I have. So I think that this is about as big as you'd want to make it. And just to be on the safe side, you can take your plate and say, okay, yeah, it's a little wider, and you want it a little wider so you can roll the top in. And as you can see how easy it is to work with this pastry, look how it's not cracking. I've had pastry that you go to do this with and it cracks. And I tend to fold it so it's almost in half, so when I got it here, this will be the edge all the way around, right? So this is the center of your pie. So if you take your pie plate
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to imagine where the center of it is, halfway through the handles, it's about right here, correct?
Right.
And then when you unfold it, it should be placed about in the right place. Now, because like I said, it does shrink, you want to kind of lift and kind of let it sag a little bit inside so that it'll fit the pan, because and you'll get some of the dough that'll cross over, like folds and stuff, and you don't mind that. You just don't want to pull it. You want to kind of let it rest in the pan and kind of spread this out a little bit. So
Yeah, and don't worry if you make a mistake or two. I mean,
although, like I said, this seems like really nice feel to the pastry. You can touch it if you like, and just kind of, just let it kind of sink down in there on its own gravity, right? And
just
make
like
sure that
boobs.
it's not something like that. And I probably wouldn't cut this one. Now, you were going to put the what kind of topping do you want on this?
The cream cheese goes on first.
No. On the top of the pie, do you want another pie crust, or do you want to have the?
I'd say
crisp?
just the crisp filling, or the top
your
would
dad
be.
really liked your pie so much.
I would do the apple crisp top.
Okay. Now, what I usually do with this is I do trim it a little bit, and the reason I usually use a knife this size, and the reason is because I don't want it really thick. You want the dough to cook all the way around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a spot that maybe doesn't have enough dough, then I can take some of this and put in behind it, kind of to thicken it up. And like right here, it's going to be a little bit thinner because there's not as much dough there. But I can take a piece of this and kind of do this with it. Actually, I can put it on here like that because I'll fold that in, right? And I'll do the same over here. I'll just cut to about here, kind of all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to be perfect because when you fold it in, that's when you change the overall general look of the pie crust, especially with dough like this where it's very soft and easy to handle.
All right.
You don't have to have it 100% perfect right at this point.
All right.
Now, hopefully, I haven't cut it too short because it's another thing I do. I cut it too short, and then like this might be a little bit short. Actually, maybe I'll make it longer. Again, I'll just kind of tuck this on here.
But
And
any
take
reason-
the dough and fold it in. If you were putting like a top crust, you'd wait till you get the top crust on, take the bottom one and fold it over the top.
All right.
Like that. And it would seal the edges so your filling wouldn't fall out.
Right.
Especially on berry pies, right?
Ooh, like blueberry or cherry or strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah. You get a lot of juice and sometimes it'll just seep out and it'll end up underneath the pie, which can make your pie crust kind of saggy and soggy underneath.
Yeah.
Like I said, hopefully this pastry worked out really well. It seems like it has. We'll find out now when we get it cooked.
And there's the cream cheese mixture. I gotta get me one of those little scrapers.
I've got extra you can have.
Could I have the red one?
Yep. I used to have 3, but I don't know. One disappeared. Maybe Dad used it or something.
Yeah, who knows?
Or maybe I just plain lost it.
Oh, what happens? Things disappear all the time.
Yeah, remember our old kitchen in our old place? When we took the sink and that out, a couple of my knives, or one of my knives was actually down in the sink drain.
Ooh.
So you just spread this along the bottom?
Yep, and you keep spreading it till the whole thing is filled. My God, it's looking good already.
Oh, doesn't it look wonderful?
Yeah, it does.
Too pretty to eat. What do we do?
I don't know. We're gonna have to eat it eventually.
So this could just go on the bottom then. You don't
Yep,
have
just
to.
just on the bottom. So you keep spreading it though until the whole bottom is. It's looking pretty good. You're doing really good.
I'm having fun too.
Yeah.
I was saying to your dad that I really like cooking stuff like this with you.
Like that time we made the rangoons.
So how's that?
It's looking pretty good.
I like to not waste any.
Well, there's a saying I heard, you know, waste not, want not. Yum, yum, yum. And if you know that there's too many, or if there's not enough room to put all the apples in, that's okay.
I can always make some turnovers or something.
Yeah, because you got the other pastry, so why not?
But what happens with apples is that they also shrink up as they cook. So these are gonna they're gonna cook down a bit.
Full cup. Full cup of sugar. 1 cup of brown sugar. Half a cup of margarine, a full cup of brown sugar. How much in baking powder? Because I say I got baking powder.
No. Baking powder is 1 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So here's the thing.
Cool. Now, oh, so this does call for baking powder. Awesome. I didn't even know.
I don't have a half a cup measure. This is half a cup.
So a half a cup of margarine, and then you use 2 knives, kind of like what we did with the...
You can mix this together.
Kind of like what we made...
If you have any lumps like that, I can get you a fork to kind of break it up a little bit.
So we do this like we did with the... Actually, you know what? I'll use the fork. So we do this pretty much like what we did with the pie pastry, but this is for the topping. There we go.
And the main thing with this is not to stir it, because then you'll end up with a paste rather than a crumble.
I kind of think you do a much better job at this than me.
Years and years of practice messing up recipes.
Yeah.
As I said, you got to kind of get the stuff from the bottom, same as when we were doing the pastry before, right?
When I did it, I used 2 knives instead of just 1.
Yeah, it is easier with 2 knives, because then you can scrape off the other knife with the second one, right?
Pie is looking good.
I just hope I didn't overfill it.
I don't think you did.
What I usually do when I cook a pie is put a pan underneath, just in case you get any drippings, and then there's a lot less cleanup after.
I agree. I did that when I cooked pie.
How's your oven looking these days?
Well, it's looking pretty good. And here we are. We're putting the topping on the pie. Looking good, eh?
Just trying to make sure it doesn't end up on falling off. So I got to pat it just a little bit, because what's going to happen is once the apples start to cook, is they're going to go and pile down, and then the crisp will be hopefully still on the top. But we don't mind if it goes in, because we just like crisp.
Yum, yum. And it'll taste much better once it's cooked.
Kind of
Just with the fork.
Yeah, and you can even do that after it's baked as well, right? Okay.
Should you choose to do that.
Now I'm going to get my hands washed again.
This is what the pie looks like. Film demonstration. This is what it looks like before it's cooked. And once it's taken out after it's cooked, I'll take a picture of what it looks like after. And there's the pie. Ooh. And this is what the pie looks like after it's cooked. Looks good, smells good. Let's hope it tastes good too. The video that you've just seen has now come to a close. If you guys want to see more, leave a like, comment, and/or subscribe to my channel. And also do not forget to hit the notification bell. I want to thank you all for watching this video. This is Patches signing off. I will see you guys next time.